Do you know why? Um, Easter is the Christian celebration of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So Jesus died on Good Friday, and then on the third day, he rose from the dead. So the naming of the celebration of Easter goes all the way back to the pre-Christian goddess in England, Eostre, who was celebrating at the beginning of spring. So given the symbol of new life and rebirth, and it was only natural to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus in the springtime. And so during Easter, what are the two most common symbols that you see everywhere in the stores? Elizabeth? Bunnies. And what else? Bunnies. What did you do yesterday? What did you do? Eggs. That's right. You colored your eggs. So eggs and bunnies or rabbit are symbols of Easter. So the next, so you see the bunny's costume with Easter eggs, which you will be hunting today. Next. So why the egg? So from Christian perspective, Easter eggs represent Jesus who was in the tomb. In a tomb that was dark. When he died on the cross, they laid his body in the tomb. And today, Easter Sunday, it's like egg breaking open and Jesus rising from the dead. So that's what it represents. So egg represents the tomb in which eggs cracks open and life comes out from there. That's why we have symbolism of eggs. So about hundreds of years ago, long time ago, in the custom came from Germany, but it wasn't a custom that during Lent you were to abstain, which means not eat eggs during Lent. But starting from Easter, people were allowed to enjoy eggs, sunny side up or scrambled eggs or however the way you like it. So it was a way of abstaining eating eggs until Easter Sunday, when the eggs able to crack open and made it available. And in the 19th century Russia, wealthy people who are very, very wealthy were able to make these Easter eggs dotted with jewels, precious jewels, and they gave to each other. Privileged people, and these eggs were called Fabergé eggs. And so why do we hide our eggs? Why do we hide them? The Easter egg hunt became an Easter tradition in the 16th century Germany. And Martin Luther held egg hunts at the church for his congregation, where the women and children would look for eggs that the men hid. Isn't interesting? So that's how it began. Men hid the eggs, and women and children were to find them. And that is because the practice is a symbolic of women who discovered the tomb. See, women were the first to discover the empty tomb of risen Christ. So women early on Sunday morning with spices and ointments. They went to anoint the body of Jesus, who they thought was dead. So they brought all those precious ointments and spice to put on Jesus' body. It was a way of showing their love and devotion and affection for their Lord. And lo and behold, the tomb was opened, and there was an angel there. Say, why are you looking for Jesus, amongst the dead? Jesus is not here, for he is risen. And that's what they heard. So women were the first to discover the good news of the resurrection of Jesus. That is why traditionally, women, along with children, were to find Easter eggs. So all the women are allowed to find eggs today if you want to. Okay, so the next symbol is the bunny. So this is a postcard from 1907. More than 100 years ago, there was this postcard, and it says, "Loving Easter Greeting." Rabbits have long been considered an ancient symbol of fertility, which you probably might not know, rebirth, and new life. So fertility means giving birth, like your mom gave birth to you, right? That's called fertility. And new life, birthing, all associated with the springtime celebration of Easter. The bunny rabbits or hare is folklore figure and symbol of Easter, originating among German Lutherans in 1962, referring to German tradition of an Easter hare bringing eggs to children. So they brought, in their story, in their legend, that hare brought Easter eggs to children. So that's why you have rabbits and eggs during Easter. I'm going to tell you a story. And the story goes, there was a man who was driving in the country road, because he lived in the countryside, and he was going to the church in the morning. And as he was driving, suddenly there was a rabbit just jumped out of nowhere, and he hit the rabbit, and the rabbit just flew about 10 feet away. And he was a sensitive man. And those of you who watched Walt Disney movie Bambi, he saw Walt Disney movie Bambi, and he thought like, oh no, on Easter Sunday I hit a Bambi. So he was very distraught, upset, and he stopped the car and went over, and he saw a little rabbit just lying restlessly. All the children are invited to come forward. You are all invited to sit up here. So the man was such a sensitive and tender-hearted man. He started to kneel before the rabbit, and he started to cry. It affected him. And then along comes another car, and then sees there was a woman who was in the car, and she also was going to church on Easter Sunday morning, and saw a man crying by the roadside. So she saw, maybe this man needs help. So she came out and says, Mister, why are you crying? And he told the story how he accidentally hit the rabbit. And he's very upset that on Easter Sunday he hit a rabbit. And rabbit looks like it's dead. So the woman says, "Hon, no problem." So she goes over to her car, opens her glove compartment in her car, and takes out a spray can, and she comes over and sprays on the dead rabbit. And a few seconds later, the dead rabbit perks up and jumps up and hops away, and about 10 feet away, stops and turns around and waves to them. And then hops again for another 10 feet and turns around and waves at them. And rabbit keep doing that. After 10 feet, turns around and waves. 10 feet, waves. Until you could see no more over the hill. And the man was amazed, and his jaw dropped. And he said, "Lady, what is that can that you sprayed?" And she handed him the can of spray. And then he read it, and the can read it. Can has writing and says, "Hairspray, guaranteed to make the dead hair come alive with permanent wave." Now, that punchline some of you may not know. Go ask your grandparents, grandmothers. Grandmothers all use hairspray during the 60s with their hair. It was like really big. And so they'll tell you what that means. So, with that said, I want to give you this crane, bird crane, origami. It's a symbol of flying, and also a symbol of peace. So each of you, this is a symbol of resurrection peace, which we all need. Here's a resurrection piece. Here you go. You can choose one you like. So good to see you.
Please remain standing for the reading of the Gospel. Luke 24, chapter 1, verse through 12. The resurrection of Jesus. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly 2 men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you, while he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the 3rd day rise again." Then they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. Stooping and looking in, he saw the linen cloths by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened.
Galatians 2:19-20. I've been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but it is Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. John 8:36. So if the Son has set you free, you are free indeed. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Please be seated.
and morning star. I found a friend in Jesus. He's my bright and morning star. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to set our children free and not suffer my sermon. We have all the children's rack right behind the last row of the pew. There are books and coloring activities, and there are tables there for children to go and enjoy. And it's Tati. Where's Tati? I thought I saw her. Why are they in nursery? Can you? Huh?
They usually go after children's time is over.
Well, they are to be in the back. So, would someone get them? And all the children can. There's a table back there that's set up for you to work with Tati and Jaleesa. We have 2 nursery attendants, and they will make sure that children are safe and will not leave outside the sanctuary. So children are free to go back and forth between parents, to visit other friends, or roam around and work on those activities back there. Okay. I would like to just explain why I ask nursery attendants to be in the sanctuary. It's because children learn so much about Christian faith just being in the sanctuary, even though they may be preoccupied with doing other things. Just being able to hear how we sing hymns, that's how they learn Christian hymns, and how we pray, the words we speak. All these things they learn through watching how adults worship. And it's one of the most important education for our children, just being in the service. So I try to make it as painless as possible by providing activities for children to enjoy. Okay, having said that, I have a Bible quiz. So when I was in seminary, our New Testament professor stood up in front of students and said, "What's the first thing Jesus said when he rose from the dead?" And of course, people were like, "Oh, what was it?" And his answer was, "Y'all, can you see me?" He was being funny, of course. Woody Allen said, "I don't believe in afterlife, although I am bringing change of underwear." More on serious note, reason life is not about accomplishing something. Reason life is about manifesting. Reason life is not accomplishing, but manifesting. It's moving from doing to being. And that requires transformation. It's dying before dying. And rising before dying. So in Galatians, that Tasha read to us, I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but it is Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. The transformation is about breaking down in order to have breakthroughs. Prerequisite for breakthroughs is breaking down. Sometimes things have to fall apart before you can get better. I always say, if you want to be found, you have to get lost first. So getting lost is a prerequisite for being found. Again, all the spiritual truths are paradoxical. When you take a stand to create something new, expect a breakdown, because chaos is a prelude for creation. So before there was a creation, there was chaos. The difference between saints and average Joe or Jane, like most of us, including myself, will not voluntarily walk into the volcano. Saints, on the other hand, they voluntarily walk into the volcano knowing that they will be annihilated. Now, this is a metaphor, not literal. Metaphor, spiritual metaphor of annihilation. I came across this book by Japanese writer by the name of Haruki Murakami. Haruki Murakami wrote a book called Kafka on the Shore. You know Kafka? Kafka on the Shore is the title. And in that book, there's a chapter called Sandstorm. And he writes, sometimes fate is like a small sandstorm that keeps changing directions. You change direction, but the sandstorm chases you. You turn again, but the storm adjusts. Over and over, you play this out like some ominous dance with death just before dawn. Why? Because this storm isn't something that blew in from far away, something that has nothing to do with you. This storm is you, something inside of you. So all you can do is give into it. Step right inside the storm, closing your eyes and plugging up your ears so the sand doesn't get in, and walk through it step by step. There's no sun there, no moon, no direction home, no sense of time. Just fine white sand swirling up into the sky like pulverized bones. That's the kind of sandstorm you need to imagine. And you really have to make it through the violent, metaphysical, symbolic storm. No matter how metaphysical or symbolic it might be, make no mistake about it. It will cut through flesh like 1,000 razor blades. People will bleed there. And you will bleed too. Hot, red blood. You'll catch that blood in your hands. Your own blood and the blood of others. And once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure, in fact, whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain. When you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walks in. That's what the storm's all about. I'm going to pause here, and I just had a senior moment and forgot that today was Lego Sunday. No wonder all the children were in the nursery room with Joan Curberson. So I'm so sorry, Joan. Would you please take all the children to the nursery room? I forgot. Oh, there's no Lego Sunday today? Okay. Whew. Okay, because when I saw you, I thought, oh my God, it's a Lego Sunday. Okay. All right, so I'm forgiven. The deserving of the ego is probably the key challenge of the spiritual path. Dissolving of the ego. Until one has really faced this daunting task, one is playing dice. Maybe having a nice time, but not doing anything really serious. All those who embark as serious students on the road to true reality, the essence of the spiritual path, which culminates in unconditional love and forgiveness, have to face these challenges. Very often, this happens through most intense suffering and radical pruning of every human attachments. Every human attachment, whether it be things or someone, anything that we are attached to that we made it into idols. The following poem by Rumi, who was a 13th century Persian poet and Sufi mystic, wrote this powerful description of this purifying, transforming process. The original language is written in Persian and Farsi. The grapes of my body can only become wine. The grapes of my body can only become wine after the winemaker tramples me. I surrender my spirit like grapes to his trampling, so my inmost heart can blaze and dance with joy. Although the grapes go on weeping blood and sobbing, I cannot bear any more anguish, any more cruelty. The trampler stuffs cotton in his ears. I am not working in ignorance. You can deny me if you want. You have every excuse. But it is I who am the master of this work. And when through my passion you reach completion, you will never be done praising my name. This verse by Rumi says so much. Here he is telling us that the wine is really the refined essence of oneself. Wine is a refined essence of grapes. It is formed from the grapes of my body. The wine is the juice emitted from the ego, the selfish, separate idea of the self, when it finally surrenders and allows itself to be crushed into non-existence. Of course, working toward that complete surrender can be terrifying, so long as we identify with the ego, the imposter self. There are times when the seeker calls out, I cannot bear any more anguish, any more cruelty. But the winemaker, caring for us too much to let us remain comfortably incomplete, continues with the work, knowing the pure sweetness of completion. When I suffer from boredom, from feeling languishing with no movement, like a sailboat in a doldrum, where I suffer slowly into depression. That is because this work of transformation that God is wanting to do, I am resisting it. I'm not allowing it to happen. When we finally free ourselves from identification with the ego self and reverently place it as a sacrifice upon the winepress, we watch it collapse into nothing. The old you becomes nothing. It dies. But something new is born from the death of the grape. The wine appears. That, to me, is the definition of resurrection, a risen life. Just when the caterpillar thought that the world was over, it became a butterfly. It's like that. Raymond Panikkar, in his book, Christophany, The Fullness of Man. Christophany is, there's no such word as Christophany. He made it up because there's no words to describe the reality, the spiritual reality that he was trying to convey. And Christophany means manifestation of Christ. What happened in the life of Christ, he writes, will happen in us. In our transformed lives, God lives in us without us losing our own being. I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but it is Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself up for me. So Jesus says in the Gospel of John, so if the Son has set you free, you are free indeed. Hallelujah. Happy Easter.
you.